650. That's the number nobody at the Pentagon wants you to think about. Not today, not while the missiles are still flying, not while CNN runs graphics showing American supremacy in the Gulf. I'm Kane Shimatsuka, and I've spent the last decade analyzing weapon systems that most people will never see fail until the failure becomes undeniable. I've watched classified briefings where analysts use words like manageable and sustainable to describe inventory levels that any undergraduate with a calculator could identify as catastrophic. I've sat in rooms where defense contractors promise production timelines they know they cannot meet, and I've read after-action reports that bury the actual math in footnotes nobody reads. What happened 5 days ago in the Persian Gulf wasn't just a strike. It was a mathematical execution, and the math tells you something Washington refuses to say out loud. America just lost a war it didn't know it was already fighting. Let me walk you through what Iran did, because the sequence matters more than the explosion. 3 targets, 3 strikes, perfect order. First, they hit the AN/FPS-132 Block 5 early warning radar at Al Udeid in Qatar. This isn't some random installation. This is a $1.1 billion system that sees threats from 5,000 kilometers away, the distance from the Gulf to western China. It's the alarm bell, the first domino. Without it, every Patriot battery, every THAAD crew, every destroyer in the region goes partially blind. Iran knew this, which is why they hit it first. Second strike, the AN/TPY-2 forward-based radar at Al Dhafra in the UAE. This is the brain that a THAAD launcher cannot function without. Not performs worse without, cannot function. A THAAD battery without this radar is a billion-dollar paperweight aimed at the sky. It cannot acquire targets, cannot guide interceptors, cannot defend anything. Iran took it out second, and that choice was surgical. Third strike, the THAAD battery itself. Roughly 95 American soldiers operate a standard battery. After the radars died, after the early warning went dark, Iran struck the launchers. And at that moment, the battery had nothing to fight back with, because everything it depended on to see, track, and engage had already been dismantled in the preceding attacks. This wasn't luck. This was doctrine. This was someone who understood how American layered defense works and knew exactly how to collapse it in sequence. And here's what terrifies me about that sequence. It means Iran has been running simulations. They've been modeling our sensor networks, mapping our dependencies, identifying single points of failure that exist even in redundant systems. This level of targeting precision doesn't come from satellite imagery or signals intelligence alone. This comes from years of studying American doctrine, watching our exercises, analyzing our deployment patterns, and building a strike architecture specifically designed to exploit the gaps we assumed didn't exist. The 3-step kill chain wasn't improvised. It was rehearsed. And if they rehearsed it once, they've rehearsed it for every major American installation in the region. Now here's where the math stops being a defense procurement problem and becomes an existential crisis. That number I mentioned, 650, that's America's entire THAAD interceptor stockpile worldwide. Every theater, every ally, every commitment. Built over 15 years at 40 to 50 rounds per year at $12.7 million each. That's the whole inventory backing every American promise to every ally in every region simultaneously. During what analysts are calling the June 2024 Israel-Iran conflict, though some reports suggest it may have extended into early 2025, the United States reportedly fired over 150 THAAD interceptors in 12 days. That's roughly 23% of the entire global stockpile consumed defending one country in a war that ended with a ceasefire. And according to procurement documents that surfaced in early 2025, the U.S. received 12 new THAAD rounds in the entire fiscal year. 12. Let that settle. America burned through 150 in 2 weeks and replaced 12 in a year. At that production rate, restocking what was lost in June alone takes over a decade, and that's before you calculate what's being consumed right now. The current conflict is 5 days old, spans 11 countries, and has already generated more intercepts than the entire June war. And a THAAD battery has been physically destroyed, not just out of missiles, but gone. Launchers, radar, fire control, the complete system that costs $1 to $1.8 billion and takes years to manufacture. You don't rebuild that in a fiscal quarter, but the mechanism that makes this math catastrophic isn't the THAAD losses. It's the invoice system Iran built into every salvo. They don't send ballistic missiles alone. They mix them with Shahed 136 drones costing $35,000 each, and here's the kill shot. A radar operator watching a mixed swarm cannot instantly distinguish a $35,000 drone from a ballistic missile carrying a warhead that could kill hundreds. Classification takes time. Terminal phase engagement doesn't allow time. So the standing order, the only rational order, is engage everything. Every blip gets an interceptor. A PAC-3 MSE costs $4 million. A THAAD interceptor costs $12.7 million. An SM-6 fired from a destroyer runs $4 to $5 million. And a meaningful percentage of those interceptors are being expended on drones that cost less than a Toyota Tacoma. Iran turned its drone fleet into a forced purchase order. Every mixed salvo is an invoice America has to pay because the alternative, guessing wrong and letting a real missile through, is catastrophically more expensive than the interceptor. This is economic warfare disguised as air defense. Iran built its entire strike doctrine around this cost asymmetry, and 5 days in, the invoices are compounding. The UAE intercepted 645 drones in the first 5 days. 645 engagements, each requiring a missile, each drawn from stockpiles that take years to refill. Lockheed Martin's production target for PAC-3 MSE is 650 units per year by some estimates for the late 2020s. They're not there yet. And that target would need to cover every allied country consuming interceptors simultaneously, not just the UAE. Then there's the dimension that extends beyond the Gulf entirely. A report from early 2025, published by a conservative defense-focused think tank, modeled what happens to U.S. interceptor stockpiles in sustained high-intensity conflict. Their assessment was blunt. High-end interceptors like SM-3, SM-6, PAC-3, and THAAD would likely be exhausted within days against a peer adversary, some systems depleted after 2 to 3 major salvos. The report estimated U.S. vertical launch system inventories at around 17,000 rounds, insufficient for even one full fleet reload. Peer-side rearming would create multi-week gaps. Their conclusion, systemic failure within 30 to 60 days. That report was written about a potential China scenario. Taiwan, the South China Sea, the conflict every Pentagon planner has gamed since 2020. But the stress test is happening now, in the Gulf, on day 5, and Beijing is absolutely watching. Every THAAD interceptor expended over the UAE is one that cannot sit in a magazine aboard a destroyer facing China. Every PAC-3 consumed defending Al-Udeid is unavailable for the Taiwan scenario. The depletion happening in real time isn't just an Iran problem, it's a global deterrence collapse, and it may be the most strategically significant second-order effect of this entire war. Think about what China's learning right now. They're watching America burn through strategic interceptor stockpiles in a regional conflict against an adversary with a $15 billion defense budget. They're watching layered defenses get systematically dismantled. They're watching production timelines that cannot keep pace with consumption rates, and they're updating their own war plans accordingly. If America cannot sustain interceptor inventories against Iran, how does it sustain them in a Pacific theater where China can generate sorties at 10 times the volume? The Gulf isn't just depleting American stockpiles. It's providing Beijing with a live-fire audit of exactly how long American missile defense can function under sustained pressure, and the answer they're seeing is measured in days, not weeks. I want to be transparent about what we don't know, because intellectual honesty matters when you're analyzing potential catastrophes. We don't have Pentagon-confirmed battle damage assessments on every strike I've described. We don't know the full scope of U.S. offensive operations degrading Iran's launch infrastructure. We don't know if backup systems, relocations, or alternative sensor networks are compensating for losses. Pentagon silence could reflect operational security as much as concealment. Probably it's both. But what we do know, the production numbers, stockpile depths, cost ratios, the modeling from defense research institutions, that data is public. It's from Lockheed Martin annual reports, Congressional Research Service briefs, the manufacturers themselves. None of those numbers have been disputed. The Gulf security architecture, the system of American bases, radars, interceptor batteries, and personnel that Saudi Arabia, Qatar, the UAE, Kuwait, and Bahrain paid for with basing rights and strategic alignment for 3 decades, rested on an implicit promise. American systems could absorb any Iranian strike package and keep functioning. The layered defense was deep enough that nothing could reach the core. 3 strikes, 5 days. The core took a hit. Reports suggest projections for conflict duration range from weeks to months, but replacing what's already been consumed takes years. Those 2 timelines don't exist in the same universe, and someone in Washington knows that, even if nobody's saying it on camera yet. Here's what keeps me awake. What should keep everyone awake? This isn't a procurement problem that gets solved with emergency defense spending bills. This is a physics problem. Lockheed Martin cannot manufacture THAAD interceptors faster than the laws of metallurgy, electronics integration, and quality control allow. You cannot compress a multi-year production cycle into months because a senator holds a press conference. The industrial base that builds these systems was optimized for peacetime replacement rates, not wartime consumption. And we just found out, in real time, under live fire, that peacetime assumptions don't survive first contact with an adversary who studied our doctrine and built their entire strategy around exploiting the math we ignored. The Gulf states are watching. Every ally who paid for American protection with basing rights, with political alignment, with strategic vulnerability, is watching a THAAD battery get destroyed and asking the question that no amount of reassuring press briefings can answer. What happens when the interceptors run out? Because they will run out. The math guarantees it. And when they do, the promises America made, the architecture we built, the credibility we staked everything on, all of it collapses. Not because American technology failed, because American strategy never accounted for an enemy who could do basic arithmetic. The math doesn't lie. The math never does. And right now in the Persian Gulf, the math is losing the war, for America at least.